All right, here we have one last video to review the different operations with imaginary numbers. Hopefully this will address some of the questions I've seen and some of the mistakes that I've seen. So, starting with just the radicals and how you simplify a radical involving I. So in example 1, we have the square root of negative 9. Now the square root of 9 is just 3. So what happens with that negative sign? All right, so the square root of a negative 9 is going to give us 3i. All right, because if you recall, the square root of a negative 1 is how we get I. All right, so that was kind of a nice perfect square. Sometimes, like in number 2, 18 is not a perfect square, but we can still simplify this. So when this happens, you want to think of breaking it down and trying to think of numbers that you know are perfect squares. All right, so when I see this negative 18, what I want to think is, I'm going to break it down. Let's think of a negative 1. All right, let's think of 9. And let's think of 2. So I have a negative 1 times a 9 times a 2. All right, if I multiply those all together, that just gives me the negative 18 that we see under the square root. So once I break it down, I can kind of think of each of them individually. The square root of my negative 1, that will give me the I. The square root of a 9, that will give me the 3. And then the square root of 2, that is not a perfect square, and there's nothing else I can simplify there. So we're going to say our final answer is, and I'm going to put the 3 first. 3 comes from the square root of 9. The negative 1 gives me I. All right, and then we still have the square root of 2. All right, so that will be our final answer, and what we can say is simplest form. You can't punch that into your calculator. Again, you'll get that domain error message. All right. Example number 3 is a subtraction problem with complex numbers. I picked subtraction because it's usually a little trickier than the addition. So again, some of you are making some mistakes on your signs. All right, so again, remember any signs in front of the number, stay with that number. And again, the subtraction sign, again, the subtraction sign has to go still with this negative 2. The subtraction sign also goes with this positive 2i. Okay, because you're subtracting everything following that subtraction sign. With their complex numbers, again, you're going to combine the real parts. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we have a 3, then it says minus a negative 2. So 3 minus a negative 2 would be 5. All right, then you go ahead and you combine the imaginary parts. And again, watch your signs. This is a negative 7. Then we are subtracting a positive 2. So negative 7i subtract a 2i would give me negative 9i. All right, and again, that is our new complex number. We cannot combine the 5, that's real, with the 9 because that's imaginary. All right. And then, let's see, number 4, this one is a multiplication problem. So again, we're going to multiply our numbers together. And again, just like when you're working with x, x times x is x squared. In the same way, I times I is I squared. And that's kind of the key when we're multiplying. Because again, we know that I squared equals negative 1. All right, so for number 4, this is just multiplication. I have 2 imaginary numbers, so I would just start with the 2. So we have 2 times a negative 4, which would be a negative 8. All right, we have a I times a I, and that would be I squared. All right, now again, here is the key. My I squared is equal to a negative 1. All right, so whenever you see I squared, you can replace that with your negative 1. That means I have a negative 8 times a negative 1, so my final answer would be a positive 8. All right. And then the last one is multiplication again. This time I'm multiplying two complex numbers. So again, this is going to involve some FOIL. Or again, if you prefer the box method, you are always welcome to do that. So FOIL, box method, you have to multiply 4 times. All right, so starting here, we're going to go 8 times 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Then we're going to go 8 times a negative 4i. Okay, that would be a negative 32i. All right, then we're going to go inside these here. So 2i times a 2 to be plus 4i. And then last, we're going to go with these. We got 2i times a negative 4i, which would be negative 8i squared. All right, so we did our FOIL. You can see we have 4 parts. Now we want to see if there's anything that we can simplify. All right, so first of all, in the center here, I see these. So these are like terms. I can combine those. All right, and here we see our I squared. So our I squared we know is negative 1. All right, so let's kind of go back to the beginning and work our way across. We have 16. All right, we have a negative 32 plus a 4. Okay, so we got negative 28i. All right. Here my I squared was negative 1. That means we have a minus 8 times a minus 1. So negative times negative means that would become positive. And that's just positive 8. All right, these are just numbers without I, so just regular real numbers. We can combine them and just watch the signs. We have a 16 plus an 8. All right, final answer, 24 minus 28i. All right, so that was a little quick review. You also have the other videos I've posted for a couple more examples if you need them. This is what you will be doing on the worksheet that I have attached today. Good luck.